The internet often gives voice to the voiceless. In Iran last June, cell phone footage of a young woman's shooting death shocked people around the world and galvanized opposition protesters as they rallied against election results. During Burma's 2007 uprisings, amateur video and photographs of protests and the government's subsequent crackdown spread around the world over the internet. U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said in a speech earlier this year that information networks are the planet's new nervous system.
Even in authoritarian countries, information networks are helping people discover new facts and making governments more accountable.
Cynthia Wong of the Center for Democracy and Technology says Washington has put the world on notice that it considers freedom of expression on the web a core value.
We think it was really historic. It's the first time really that global internet freedom has been elevated to that level. It really showed a recognition that preserving internet freedom is absolutely necessary for a whole range of foreign policy goals, from protecting human rights to promoting economic development.
The push for internet freedom comes amidst a showdown between Google and China. The internet search engine cites a recent cyber attack on its infrastructure that originated in China and increasing government censorship. Chinese authorities counter that Google must obey Chinese laws. Beijing also accuses Washington of trying to impose internet imperialism. But internet specialist Rebecca McKinnon says it's not that simple.
One thing is very clear from the chatter I see on the Chinese blogs and also from just what people in China tell me is that Google is much more popular amongst China's internet users than the United States, which is very interesting. And so people feel a great deal more loyalty. They feel emotionally much more connected to Google in a way that is, shall we say, more purely positive than the way they feel about the United States, which is much more conflicted.
Stephen Yates, the president of DC Asia Advisory, says the situation with Google has only helped heat up the debate for free speech in cyberspace.
It's one thing for the world to think the Chinese government is onerous and intruding on the privacy of its citizens. The fact that it is willing and capable to do it to almost anyone who has a political heart beating in the world is a much bigger threat than I think they wanted to convey.
Yates says greater pressure from Washington is likely to push authoritarian governments to tighten their cyber controls even more. But, says McKinnon, there are limits to how far authoritarian governments can go.
And so this is one of the issues, is how far can you go before you turn your internet into an intranet? And if you have an intranet, and if your internet isn't sufficiently connected to the outside world, can you be a world economic powerhouse?
The sheer power of the internet to spread information, even when governments try to suppress it, prompted the Obama administration to announce recently that internet companies can now export services to Cuba, Sudan, and Iran, despite a ban against other types of trade. Secretary Clinton argues that from an economic standpoint, there is no difference between censoring political speech and commercial speech, because there's a direct link between online freedom and economic growth. William Ide, VOA.